All right then. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host Ken Harlan here, rocking on a wonderful Wednesday as the NBA Finals are with us. I'm watching it to the right with the Spurs up by 8 in the opening stanza. Anyhow, AfterShoX, Season 2, Episode 15, 046, for those of you keeping score at home. Always thank the folks that provide all the wonderful tools for content creation. It's getting pretty numerous at this point. You'll know the drill there. You want to be part of the Foxhole experience, which could be on AfterShoX or the scene. Drop us a line at FTINFX at gmail.com or call the hotline 541-525-0896. Leave us a message. All right, let's not dilly-dally around. Let's get to mixing. AfterShoX 046 coming at you. Well, let's just call this segment. Remember that movie Love and Basketball? Yeah, I don't remember it either, but I didn't watch it. Okay, because the whole premise just made my stomach retch. I mean, I tried watching it at one point. But it's just, yeah. I see how some people dig it. Wasn't necessarily my cup of joe. But we're going to call this segment Love and Basketball because there's a lot of love and hate going around. Obviously, with the finals going on, we know that the Knicks and Spurs are at it. But my quick prediction, I think I said the Knicks after they won the play-in. So, all big spare, I'm still going to say the Knicks in 6. Get that out of the way since the game is going. Well, let's talk about the team that San Antonio vanquished. That would be the Oklahoma City Thunder. Isn't it interesting how unlikable this bunch became overnight without really doing anything besides flopping in a certain aesthetic that really pisses off old heads? I mean, at the end of the day, these guys aren't despicable. Like teams in the past, like the Bad Boy Pistons, or if you were a Laker or Celtic fan, vis-a-vis, and Jordan creating slights. I mean, this team is just like, yeah, okay, they're young, they're on their way to great things. But then San Antonio, give them credit, rising out of the ashes to take the last 2 games in the series. And it's like, once again, like the Nuggets a few years ago. Everybody's talking dynasty. Everybody's talking, wow, how many chips are they going to stack? And the front office is pretty smart as far as the way they laid out their vision for the next decade. So to think that they won't get chips. But as we know from these guys, back to back is very important as far as legacy, as far as dynasty building. And that they were taken out by a younger lion when they're young. It's like, hey, let's not start printing those dynasty novels quite yet and making the documentaries. There may be some work to do. Because who's to say in this competitive West and an East that's getting better, especially if the Knicks can somehow win it this year, they could be legit for a while. And I think that's great for the league. Yeah, it was kind of funny. I was obviously, big PSG fan. We'll get into that more in the next segment. And at one point afterwards, Giannis, he was obviously in Budapest and the CBS crew, which they're funny. They're not quite the NBA. And Giannis told them that. But in their own realm, I give that crew their flowers. It gets a little bit silly at times. But, there's just certain crews that kind of nail it. And they're one of them, obviously. The TNT, now ESPN crew is always nails. I think the roving panel with the two Robbies and Lady Low, that's good. They're solid at what they do as well. Gee, where am I going with this? But the thing is, having Giannis on there, yeah, I know where I was going with this. And of course, because he was kissing Jerry Henry's ass, as most people do, given the great footballer that he was. I thought it was kind of interesting, though, sitting there listening to him and talking about, because he has been on the big stage. He does have one of these, and that is very important in the end of the day. I thought, has his time come and gone? Or is there a possible place for him, a landing spot, where he can join a team that could cause trouble? I know some folks have said Golden State. I don't see how the Lakers could ever maneuver it. I don't think the Knicks need to. There's a Houston out there. There's teams out there, and maybe even Portland, depending on if his value is diminished a little bit. But then again, if it didn't work with Dame in Milwaukee, do you think it would work in Portland? I don't know. I just thought it was interesting seeing Giannis in the post-game melees. Well, not melees, more like celebrations, victory laps, and all the smiles and giggles taking part on it, especially on CBS with that crew. And just thought to myself, yeah, it's clear he's got Eddie on Milwaukee, as they say, or we used to say back in the day about Eddie on. If you know, you really know. Oh yeah, all right. We gotta do something funny here. So give me a second while I set this up. Ah, always playing around with our toys and stuff. Yeah. So let's see here. We're gonna talk a little WNBA. That's why I had to get it in the box here. Boy, a couple of things here. When it comes to the W, and there's a lot to say about the W, especially with folks out there content creating. And I give these guys credit. As the lovely Rachel Demita said, why are the hardliners and their, what you say, their comrades in the woke Spurs media, where are they coming down on the social media creators? Like, they're the only ones that follow the pulse of the league. Is it where I get all my info? I think it's gotten a little bit crazy, and I want to address that in a minute. But I want to first start out with, I just was thinking about the Portland Fire. There's a lot of maelstrom, or firestorm would be a better way to say, after they gave the Indiana Fever one of their worst losses. That people that follow that team, there's a lot of people that do. There's a lot of content creators, but they've been drawing well, and it's a good product. And I guess it just has me wondering, at some point with that team, are they going to be the toast of the town? Because I don't know what this Dundon guy with the Blazers, as I've said all along, I can't see him moving them out of Portland. But what the hell do I know? What does anybody know? I mean, obviously, there are some folks who are trying to be level headed and say, look, bro, his Hurricanes are in the Stanley Cup, so he knows how to put together a winning organization. You just have to deal with some of his thriftiness and probably being an absentee owner. Still, my money still says he can't bolt on Rose City. I mean, obviously, stranger things have happened because no one would have ever thought the Giants and Dodgers would abandon the Polo Grounds in Ebbets Field for the West Coast. So anything's possible in this lifetime, as somebody who has seen the Raiders and Rams move multiple times, and the Colts move in the dead of night. Wow. And they get I tell you, it would be a world gone mad, as the song goes, if somehow the fire, because the Blazers left town, became the pride of Portland. Obviously you're going to have the Timbs. I wouldn't want that for Portland. I know that Seattle is on the cusp of getting the Supersonics back, we think. But who needs to go through a generation to wait for the NBA to get off of its sorry ass to give you another team? That's all I'm saying. Okay. I've gone a little bit longer than I thought, but let's get to it. Caitlin Clark. That's why I've got the picture of her in Whitlock in the infographic. So what day is Wednesday? So I've seen every episode of Fearless this week. I watched Fearless. I watched the Coach JB and Smitty show. I know I'm giving these guys props. I watched Ben Daniel podcast, Keep the Vision, Rachel Demita. Lots of folks as far as the content that I respond to here on AfterShoX and then Foxtrot and Foxhole. Be sure to check out the latest episode of it and go back and listen to this past week. We're cooking. Woo! But this whole thing, like I said, with Fearless, he's basically spent the whole hour. This week, for example, just a snapshot so you don't have to waste your time checking out what I'm talking about. I'll just give you a synopsis of the weird stuff going on with Caitlin Clark this week. I've heard, because Caitlin Clark, after they got their ass kicked by Portland, there was a little confrontation with her and Coach Stephanie White, who, according to the Clarkites, is everything but a coach and is more like the bride of the Antichrist to them. Caitlin comes out and says she rides with Stephanie, and now we're having stories about she's got Stockholm syndrome, comparing her to Patty Hearst and the things that Patty may or may not have done or went through. And I said, are we losing our minds? I had somebody say that the Fever are sabotaging the most popular athlete on the planet right now. And I'm like, maybe in your wet dreams, a particular person, because of his snow bunny fetish, I like to think, on the verge of the World Cup with Messi, CR7, Mbappe, Yamal coming. The world doesn't give a shit about Caitlin Clark. A bunch of you simps do. And it sucks because I like Caitlin Clark, but this whole madness surrounding her makes her so unlikable. Her diva antics don't help, but it's not as bad as some of you all are making it out to. Hi, Carrie Champion. And I get it. Everybody is obsessed with her because there is, I don't know, it's a great content creation factory where people line up their shows up. The amount of live streams and actual posts anytime there's something to do with her. And I'm thinking to myself, and you all heard, if you follow my podcast, you all know where I stand with this. Going back to when she was at Iowa, and what it means to the league for her, Sabrina, Juju coming, Angel Reese, is what to a certain extent. But I also said that the old heads who made this league aren't going to roll over. And I've heard it wrapped around biblical narratives in terms of we have to stop the alphabet mafia because it's a conspiracy against the Christian way of life and daughters. I'm just like, even if that's true, whatevs. You didn't give a shit about the league for most of its 30 years. Now all of a sudden, some little princess has gotten your eye. And by the way, I think there are hotter girls than Caitlin. I don't know what you guys who just can't sleep at night thinking about her. I don't know what it is. Okay. Her skills are okay when she's on, but I don't think people are allowing her to, I don't know, mature in, yes, a very competitive league. After all, The Asha Wilsons want their flowers too, like I've been telling you forever. I said it last week, you psychos, the Clarkites, you need to get off the ledge with this. It's okay if the Indiana Fever ends up being a crap fest and they sabotage their own product and somehow she gets to play somewhere else. Angel Reese got out of Chicago and now is on a title contender in Atlanta. It's okay, folks. I mean, I get it. Part of it's for clicks and content, but the way y'all carry on, there's something way more to it than just building your brand and getting your followers and soup chats. Yeah? Gee, they play the dream next as far as the Fever goes. Oh boy. The good thing is that'll happen and I'll be able to put, I think it's episode 317 or 316 of Fox Trading in a Foxhole coming later in the week. We'll be able to look into that then. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll move on to something else. All right, then. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan here. Ice cold chilling like Kavicha Karvachkelia. Looking the wrong way into the mirror. Feeling the love here, folks. Okay, so today is what? June 3rd, which basically means the countdown is on, y'all. World Cup in the United States, Canada, Mexico, the Americas. The biggest world event, the biggest athletes, in spite of what fools like Jason Whitlock will say about Caitlin Clark, the biggest athlete on the planet. Yeah. With Messi, Yamal, CR7, Dimboos, Carvajal, Vitinha. Yeah, you want to go find that guy's you want to find him in his bunker and give him a personal beat down yourself, like many folks. But I'm sure if we figure out where that is, Joy Taylor will beat us to it. Okay, enough of that. So obviously, I'm in the height of my glory right now. All decked out in the red and blue gear. PSG retained the European Championship, going back to back. The first time that somebody's done that since Madrid did it last decade or repeat. First time it's happened this decade. Yeah, what a scene it was. Especially Arsenal, their fan base, and with any English team that ascends to the highest mountain, the folks left sitting around the bar room throwing darts. They're just as hilarious as watching an English team in any final. I mean, there's so much to unpack for me as far as this go. I don't want to go too deep with this, but I gotta get a few points in. I would be remiss over the week, especially when this is one of those times where I can legitimately talk about my team, because okay. So the match itself, not a classic, but it was a classic because it ended up in pins. And anytime it ends up in pins, it's high drama. It was the highest watched, I think, UCL final over here ever. And a lot of folks who normally don't pay attention were. And were spellbound by a game that really wasn't that exciting because Arsenal decided to park the bus. They got an early goal. I know I was stressed for the longest time until my man, Kavica Kvaratskhelia, Kamara, drew the penalty, got us even, and yeah, there was a lot of ups and downs throughout the rest of the match. Obviously, the 30 minutes of extra time, and then we get the penalty kicks. And PSG, who had been horrible at the line this year, horrible, came through. And obviously, Arsenal didn't. I'm not going to take anything away from Arsenal because say what you will about Arteta, they had a plan. They made PSG play their game. And just in the end, PSG found a way to grind out their second UCL championship. And it's so blown away. And like I said, for me, being a PSG fan, most of the QSI era, this has been an incredible moment in the club's history to see them finally reach their ambitions. I mean, good grief. The Lucio effect, right? You gotta just ask yourself, will teams, look at what PSG did? And when I say what PSG did, I've brought it up many times on the platforms, how they went through a revolving door of managers. I just think of all the managers they've had since we've been doing the Foxtrotting and the Foxhole podcast, which started in 2020. We're getting ready to have our 6th birthday end of the month, as far as the whole FTINFX media group is concerned. But yeah, anyhow, I just sit there and think about all the managers tinkering until they got it right. And I wonder about teams now, because, obviously, as soon as the plane landed, Lucho's phone was ringing, but Nasser El Khalifi, he's not letting Lucho out of the building. And why would Lucho go? I mean, he's got a chance to really make a legacy. I mean, one thing to do the trouble at one club, but to do it twice, to go back to back, and actually help a team like PSG reach the mountaintop. That's a crazy thing. A team that, as I know, stumbled and was kind of like the butt of everybody's jokes as far as the soccer peanut gallery is concerned. Remontada this. Oh, what happened to you against Man U? Chelsea. Oh, Mbappe bartling it in front of the goal against Bayern in the 2020 final. Choking to Borussia Dortmund. On and on. I could probably sit here for an hour talking about the heartbreak that PSG fans experienced over the past decade. Just saying, y'all. Yeah, I just think teams probably will have less patience. Because it is about finding the right guy. PSG, like I said, went through all these permutations, bringing in these managers, and then trying to get the biggest stars. It's like, no, find the right guy and get the best talent who can work with the manager. And all of a sudden, you become one of the greatest teams in the world and have the opportunity. You become a generational team. I think other teams are going to look around the room and just say, I see. Okay, I'd be remiss. That the Clash album that people really don't like. Somehow I kind of like it, always did. Maybe because I saw that tour and had a lot of friends with legendary Larry Sievers, guy I knew way back in my first stint in college. Yeah, where was that at? Was that like at Long Beach? I think it was. Long Beach Civic Center. Anyways, that song, This Is England, probably the only good song on Cut the Crap. Well, I wouldn't say that, but the song everybody thinks is a track that would be worthy on Clash albums that everybody does like. Anyways, I thought about this England, like I was mentioning earlier about. It was really weird because like Arsenal is kind of, how shall I say this? They've kind of stepped into the role we had when we were chasing European glory. I mean, obviously, PSG can stack up as many League One championships and still be called farmers, but Arsenal being able to win the Premier League and having a chance to have the rare double and win Champions League. As a matter of fact, they were going to have a parade the next day, no matter what. But it was interesting on so many levels. And I don't want to like start rambling here, so I'm going to try to keep us on focus. One, the English language commentators. Oh my God. I get it to a certain extent because probably many of them have covered the Premier League at some point, or pundits, as they like to say. But my goodness, can we at least be level? I just, as a PSG supporter, I was ready to like throw my TV off the window, with, and this has been going on for years in terms of how shambolic English language broadcasts can be. Especially, with the commentators, at least guys like Jamie Carragher and that crew, Katie Scott. They've gotten better. I mean, Jamie Carragher used to be so obnoxious. Right? Theory's always been, pretty level, and I've always dug him. I think his analysis and, the other cat, he's just there. He's comic relief, right? And he's just having, fun. But it's just, I like how that over time they can be balanced and they can give, the other teams in Europe love as opposed to, okay, we get a matchup that has an English team playing anybody and the guys are frothing in the mouth and reaching from all different corners. They're like, come on, we have to somehow will this to happen. Like, if we don't win, it ain't proper. Okay. Then you've got the Arsenal folks. That's a whole nother level. I've been there, although I'm not going to be a hypocrite. So I know after PSG's disappointments, I know especially during the remontada in Manchester United, where the referee was literally just smiling, laughing as he gave a pin. But my goodness, man, you're right, the penalty that we should have gotten on the handball, but whatever. Christina Uncle says it shouldn't be a penalty, even though everybody else seemed to argue with her, but she's the rules expert, so we will go with what Christina says. But she also said that the penalties that Arsenal are still screaming, at least the irrational fans are still screaming about. She said those shouldn't have been pins either, especially the one where the guy's got Nuno Men's arm and Arteta's still crying. I'm like, he was basically mugging Nuno Men's before the foul. Okay. All right, let me get off this. I could talk about this forever. I mean, But no, I got one more point. I do love England in the sense that, like I say, I ain't being anti-England. I just think the commentators, they just kind of lose their minds. But the thing that cracks me up is all these clubs that have won in the past doing the flex on Arsenal. I mean, right, the Chelsea guy, didn't they fire him because he was, made this really, let's just say it was in poor taste coming from a club's official social media account. But the folks were letting Arsenal have it and just, they were way too orgasmic, I guess. And I know I've been there a few times myself as far as clubs that I don't want to win. But this was so over the top. And, I kind of felt for Arsenal because I know, like I said, they've kind of stepped into where we were before we won. And I say we, as in PSG, as I'm a hardcore red and blue supporter, when we won it in the 24-25 season. Like I said before, all the heartbreak we went through. I was like, oh, it's interesting to see somebody else wearing that shoe now. And everybody coming at you saying you always bottle it when it matters. I kid you not. It's just interesting stuff there. Anyways, the flex from the past and everybody, like Nottingham Forest, who won back to back. I can't remember exactly when that was. Part of the scenery, but they're flexing like, yeah, this is why it's the beautiful game. Okay, I know we've been rambling, so we gotta get it together here. Um, United States men's national team get a win 3-2 over Senegal. CP10 gets on the score sheet. It was like a 5-month drought. Feel good match. I mean, there's one more I think before the World Cup begins as far as tune-ups go. The fact that they gave up 2 goals against a decent squad, one of the better African squads. There's still some folks that are not, how shall I say, coming into this World Cup feeling as confident as they should. And there's a lot of things swirling here, as we talked about in the last Foxhole in the Foxhole. Right, Pochettino flirting with AC Milan to join the Rossoneri. I like what Alexi Lawless said about that. Just, if you all thought this was going to be a long-term solution and this is going to be a long-term job that he wanted to keep, no, he was brought here to solidify things and give us a chance to compete in a World Cup on our own soil. We'll see if this backfires or not. But yeah, he's not long for this job, and that's okay. It's just going to be a roller coaster, folks. This is what it really comes down to. I can't wait for it to begin. Lots of great watch parties that Sporting Cascades are going to be doing around town. So if you're watching this in your locally, I'll drop more info as I get it as far as that goes. I mean, they had a big turnout for the Champions League final at the Annex over there by campus, U of O. A lot of folks. I would have been there, but it's way too stressful for me to watch PSG and a UCL final in public. That's a British Petroleum, right? All right. Woo. Okay, lastly, as far as this segment is concerned, the World Cup itself, which like I said, the countdown is on. Is it a bucket list? Or is it more, or are a lot of you just cool watching at home like I am? My good friend, Miss Michelle Nadeau, she lives over there in the Netherlands, I believe. And she's like, saw my post about PSG winning, was asking me, well, hey, Kenny, are you going to the World Cup? And I said, no, I don't want to be a part of this, what I think is a ridiculous cash grab. And this is not only the tickets, lodging, and we talked about, right, the Port Authority jacking up the fares to basically to get from New York City to MetLife over in Jersey, like $150 both ways. Yeah, the whole stuff that happened out of the pandemic where people realized you could make lots of money preying on our, oh gosh, my bucket list notion. Gosh, I've got to be there because the pandemic told me never to take anything for granted again. Of course, the deniers are just like, and you wore a mask and got that silly shot for what? You silly sheep. Oh, we're cooked. Don't get me, yeah. But I'll let other people make that argument on those podcasts when it comes to that nonsense. I just think it's funny that now every event, I mean, that was like, so for the League's Cup. I think I mentioned this in the last box in the Foxhole. The League's Cup. Tickets going for like $900 at BMOS, where LAFC play. What the? $900. So the World Cup, and I loved last week when people were saying, we're gonna look into, probe into the pricing and the gouging, and like every sporting event and concert have a probe in general about entertainment being way overvalued. Yeah, all right. Yeah, I'm cool with watching it at home, man. I really am. Not crimming on anybody that's there because I've known friends who've seen it in other countries. And I think that's much more fun than getting gouged in this country. But whatever floats your boat, right? It's a bucket list experience. For me, it's not. At least not here, not this one. Just maybe I don't get another chance. That's the way it goes. But I'm okay. When it's time to go. But hey, okay, yeah. Especially when it's just about squeezing people for everything they got because they feel they have to have this experience. All right, folks. We'll come back here with something interesting once I figure it all out. All right, all right, all right. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan here. Ice cold chilling like Kavicha Karvachkalia. Yeah, I know. Back to back, I'm sorry. We're just going to be obnoxious for a while. A lot of pain and suffering, a lot of people piling on PSG for many years. So now that we went back to back and became legendary, we're going to be insufferable for a while as far as that goes. But let's get to some more fun here. I was sitting there, in that rant, like I went on the WNBA earlier. Be freestyle here for a second. Sorry. I mean, it's funny when I think about MLS wanting to go to the European calendar. I've brought up how the NWSL is putting it on hold, which I think is smart. With all these weird, wacky content creators from the WNBA who are taking advantage, because this is a time of the year where there's nothing going on. I know there's people out there who will tell you, oh man, you need to be watching this UFL. It's good football. Yeah, well, if you're a football coach, any contact football with decent athletes, you're going to say is good football. But there ain't nobody in the freaking stands. I hear that TV's kind of drawing, but it's just because there was nothing going on this time of year. And I think, MLS, what are you doing? Abandoning this window. Well, the fact that they haven't done anything to really, well, they have, but it could be a lot better, given the product, given the facilities and the interest that they could have tapped into, but seems to have gotten kind of lazy and they're okay making their money. They're making hand over fist. I went over the valuations of the top clubs that make people in Europe blush. I mean, NWSL clubs would make people blush as far as their valuation is concerned. So we all get that. I just am like, why would you abandon this window? WNBA, these people who built the brand, they get it. Because MLB is weird, right? When I was growing up, the national pastime, it captivated you in the summer. And I think with the hardcore, baseball geeks, I guess it does. But I think our society is so pivoted away. And we don't really care until, you get to like the end of July and who's going to make the move, right, to make the run in September into October. And that's what it's really become here in the modern era with the expanded playoffs. I mean, obviously, interleague play has made this, that we do get to see unique matchups more and more, and, stuff like rivalry weekend. So, yeah, I think the regular season is kind of a ho-hum affair for a lot of folks. Baseball's doing well, and turn in. I watch my Dodgers. People watch their Yankees, Cubbies. so on. Unless you're the Giants and it's a real stinky diaper right now, because there are some stinky diapers right now at MLB. But I just get the feeling that baseball is like this kind of established institution. It's gonna have a certain amount of fans, but it does not create the buzz in this type of window. It's just kind of this year is kind because the NFL, you get the June 1st, there's like a little window here, but it's kind of pretty quiet after the draft. The schedule drops, and just when you thought it was the quietest time of the year, leave it to the NFL to do what it does best. Yeah, I mean, seriously. I mean, we're at a point where everything's quiet. Wait, Caitlin Clark fatigue is killing me. The WNBA with, and it's self sabotage, whatever the hell you want to call it, right? But the NFL, out of nowhere, just says, we got this. And Myles Garrett and A.J. Brown, as part of the June 1st movement day, are involved in blockbuster trades. Hell, with Myles Garrett going to Los Angeles and joining a cavalcade of already stars in Los Angeles, Aaron Donald's like, damn, I'm going to come back too. I want to be part of this. And obviously, A.J. Brown going to New England after what went down with Vrabes and Diana Rossini, which in the end, a whole lot of smoke, but not much of a fire, especially when it comes to Vrabel losing his job. Somebody asked me that, well, not asked me, but said when this trade went down, it's like, I wonder if Vrabel's going to be his coach. I said, come on, man, don't even think for 2 seconds he's not. If he was going to get fired, it would have happened. Think of Mr. Kraft and everything he's been through over the last, almost 3 decades. So no, Vrabes wasn't going to lose this job. They just said, sit tight, make some appearance. Jen, show up your ring. Rossini, hang out with your man, drop a low profile. No biggie. It blows over. Sure, there'll be jokes, for the next 4 or 5 years. And I still say she comes out, Rossini, that is, comes out of this with an even bigger platform and pulls off what Joy Taylor and her further dive into the gutter will never achieve. Yeah, I know, right? Mm-mm-mm. I mean, you gotta like it, though, with the Rams going all in, kind of recognizing there's a certain window. You got everything put together. Because, right, we're going to think that Stafford could play 2 or 3 years before giving the reins to Ty Simpson or whoever. If you build this team, which they have been doing, and they are a very smart organization, and Stan Kroenke, well, speaking of Arsenal, and everything else the guy owns, they know what's up. So, yeah, I mean, it's just, I like the Rams going all in. I like the Patriots going all in. I'm really curious about the Eagles. Getting AJ out of the locker room, does that actually help Jalen Hurts? Does that help this team, or is this the big, the Eagles starting to become one of those teams that had a moment then kind of faded away? I know me personally, being a Commanders fan, getting that mofo out of the NFC East, I'm gonna have 3 or 4 hard seltzers on that one, folks. Okay, where else are we going here, man? We're still cooking. The whole thing with Jackson Dart and Abdul Carter and how that got legs. God, isn't that a reflection of how silly we would become? I mean, luckily the trades that happened yesterday finally took some steam out of that story. It was just a whole. I don't know why Abdul Carter, who's already earned a few TMCA awards, those smelly stainless steel bowls we give out. What was that quote that he has? I felt it my need to speak out, about something my teammates doing. It's not your when it's okay, the president, a standing president, and I don't care how woke your silly ass is. When you feel the need to speak up for somebody who happens to be on the right side of the aisle, and you're on the whatever you are, woke, left, alphabet mafia, whatever the case may be. Yeah, if I were the Maras and John Harbaugh, I'd get this clown. Maybe they did sit him down and kind of read him the riot act. Oh, well, they're young, and I'm like, that's the point. Maybe we teach people some common sense, especially when it comes to political views and creating smoke where there didn't need to be. I said, luckily, these big trades yesterday finally have diffused that. You know what, Shador? See, this is what's wrong. I don't want to be one of these boomers that just really looks down at the generation. But when I find out that Shador Sanders has made like $17 million in merchandising, like because of his jersey, all that kind of stuff. Our king. I mean, this guy, based on what we saw, which wasn't a lot, and y'all buying his jerseys. I mean, is this some fashion statement? Because, I got to rep my king. And so, Deshaun Watson looks good. So if he ends up being a perennial bench warmer, you're all going to be rocking your king, spending all that money, making this guy rich. The folks who say, the brothers being done wrong, I'm like, guys making money hand over fist, getting to be in the Pro Bowl for doing nothing, and y'all are caping for him because his dad was great way back in the 90s in the NFL, the Cowboys and the 49ers. Other than some okay football at Colorado, still really hasn't broke through to get to a level where, what did Dan Lanning say? About clicks? Just saying, y'all. 17 million. Then we got the NFL shamelessly trying to skirt the conversation about how they are destroying the Sunday window, especially the late afternoon window, with their never-ending desire to have football on every freaking night, as opposed to Sunday, the day that made the NFL the institution that it is. And like, well, we acknowledge, but the idea that we can move. I'm just like, you know what? You're making more money. You're making so much money. You don't have to oversaturate and kill the goose. And I think the NFL's Teflon, so I don't know how you kill the goose. But there's a point where it loses a lot of its fun. When I sit there on Sunday afternoon, as I've said many times on these platforms, and all you're giving me is Arizona and New Orleans, some late afternoon game, from Phoenix, and nothing else. Maybe there may be another game in that window until 5:20. It's like British Petroleum all day as far as that goes. All right, folks, we're gonna take a quick break, and we'll come back and we'll get you out of here. All right, welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Kid Harlan here. Ice cold, chilling like Kavicha Karvich. Number 7, Heater Dude. Okay, what do we got going on here? So, looking forward to wrapping this up because game 1 is San Antonio. And if you know Ted Nugent's Double Live Gonzo, what the guy says at the end of that song, San Antonio, San Antonio. But you gotta listen really good. Great album, regardless of what you think of his political views. Stormtrooping, stranglehold. Anyways, the Spurs are up by 9. We're having too much fun here. We're rambling. But we've got to that part of AfterShoX. Number 4046, by the way. Oh, gosh. I know people are going to come at me for... Look at this. I mean, look at this. Sometimes I love how things will not cooperate sometimes. And I got to sit here and work with my tablet. Is actually being a butt right now. Wow. Good grief. Apologize for that. Technical difficulties here. But yeah, we're still under construction, as you probably can tell. You're noticing some slight changes as far as the format goes and working on. We've got better lighting. We've supposedly got better sound, but it's taking a couple of weeks to get this all together. A production suite, things that we can go mobile. Working with SJ. She's got this big project that's going on. Yeah, so there's a lot going on here at FTINFX Media. So we thank you for being able to put up with us. And we apologize if there are hiccups from time to time. Promise here before the summer's over, this thing's going to be looking slick and tight. Got an episode of The Scene. It's basically in the can. I got to do some post-production work, but I hope to have that out when this comes out. Really good conversation. I've got several people who are scheduled to be on. So this is going to be a fun summer as far as content from the Foxhole is concerned. San Antonio up by 11. All right. I have been yamming and yamming. Let's get to parting shots and probable salty takes. Okay, it is June and we're in the 3rd day. So the elephant in the room, it's Pride Month. Alphabet Mafia, blah, 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 blah. You're on the bus, you're off the bus, blah, 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 blah. It's like this time of the year, it's the most cringy because of everything. And it's weird this year to see, like the NFL, take a very muted, because normally the 1st of June, you start seeing the rainbow colored logos in social media, and what seems to be a reversing trend, kind of really quiet about it, which there's a lot to say about that. But if it keeps the angry bigots in the peanut galleries focused on other stuff, great. Now maybe we can get through this month without the theatrics we've seen in the past as far as the sports perspective is concerned. I doubt it, but 3 days into it, this has been way more tolerable than what I've seen in the past. No matter what you think or feel on this subject, that's irrelevant here in the Foxhole. I'm just looking at it on how over the past, I don't know how long enough, it's brought out the ugliest in a lot of people, especially the team's reaction to it. And I'm really curious as we get further in the month what the analysis is going to be as far as teams taking a approach to be a little more muted, especially the NFL. Especially the NFL and its messaging in this particular decade. Yeah. Wow. I gotta say this thing too, and I'll bring it up more I thought I was going to mention it last segment, but I'll mention it now. This Sorsby fella, man. The more we find out about him, the more a scumbag he is. Scoresby the scumbag. Maybe it's what, I should have Andy G for the show next door, the graphic artist, make a character and we call him Scoresby the scumbag with his big time money grab chasing lawyer Jeffrey Kessler. Make two evil characters out of that guy. But I think the NCAA, and I've said this many times, there has to be like a toehold with this one. I don't know. I mean, the judge that had a tech connection, as we've talked about already, recused himself. There's going to be another judge in Lubbock. But I'm really hoping that if they lose this case, they go as high as they have to. F this Jeffrey Kessler guy and F this Sorsby kid. When you find out, all the different sports that he bet on, including, I think, his own teams or whatever, no. I mean, stop kowtowing to these folks because, well, we're afraid of them. We're afraid of, you're already in litigation. But no means no at some point. This guy doesn't deserve to play college again. That should be done with. We're in this era where it's being put on a silver platter for you as far as money, especially anything that you're able to get before this Cantwell, Ted Cruz legislation, if it even goes through, where we hope to have some sanity. And you're all sitting here gambling and doing other stupid kinds of shit and putting it in danger. No, man, ban this kid. As I said last week, and I'll say it again. Every week this kid's name is in the news. Let's have some deterrence. As I've been saying for a while with a lot of things. In order to get to a better place, there needs to be a little pain every now and then. There needs to be some things that are uncomfortable. And when you're a douchebag like this kid has been, all right. I talked about MLB a second ago. And this whole, so we know now, and we've known all along that the owners were going to come, MLB was going to come with some type of salary cap. And we know what Bryce Harper told the commissioner. Get the you-know-what out of the clubhouse when this was broached before. And I thought it was interesting this past week because I thought that Mr. Bryce Harper, he spoke a brutal truth. And basically, he says that, both sides really need to be aware of the sport's popularity right now, which I'm still trying to gauge what it really is. The fact that we all cook the books and just spout out all sorts of things, it is hard to say what's true. I'm working with my peeps to get some real good analysis as far as that goes. But I think baseball's doing fairly well. And it's pretty clear. A lot of folks have done their history. They've watched their Ken Burns and read their books. And no, we don't want to go down the route of 94. Not now. Given all the things that people can focus, right? And basically, you need to if the vibe is good, when you're up against this professional and college football animal, and, the NBA with its product, watching this kid here, who's got at 22, a good 15 to 20 years of being a badass on the horizon. There's all these things. Like I said, I don't know what MLB's real momentum is right now, but it's not negative. We're not talking like NASCAR, and even NASCAR with the infusion of Jordan and other things, it's even seeing happier days. You can see it. And so, yeah, I like Harper, who has had some strong language towards the commissioner, also saying, hey, we need to be cognizant that, hey, we're in a good spot. with the fans, the product. Maybe we shouldn't go F this thing up. Now, this is the one that, speaking of the commissioner, Mr. Manfred, this is the one that kind of mystifies me. What did he say? Let me look at this here real quick. See if I get it right. So he was talking about expansion. And he's like, it can open up, baseball ponders expansion as the NBA is doing right now. He says it can open up all kinds of possibilities. And I was sitting there thinking, for who? If there were, I don't know, they were going to expand to 4 more cities, but right now we're probably only looking at 2, and probably Sacramento and Portland. Or just burning up money, only to be told, "Oh, honey, you ain't getting picked for the Bachelorette this time." So I hear this kind of stuff, and I wouldn't be against baseball adding 4 or 5 teams and actually letting some cities, if they can pull it off and put out a good product and become incredible destinations. I got no problems with that being, but I know baseball is not going to add that many teams. I mean, they did kind of, right? I mean, as far as like when you add you had the Mariners and the Blue Jays in the 70s. Then in the 90s, you came back with Colorado and Florida, right? And then Tampa Bay. As far as the Rays, I think as far as expansion goes, obviously the Expos relocate to DC. So yeah, I mean, if you're gonna give some cities like Portland, so what is it? Salt Lake City and Nashville are pretty much the front runners. There's going to be expansion. So yeah, opportunities for who? I spoke a little bit about this earlier. I think I brought up the UFL. I've been telling you for a while. They've been secretly doing a deep dive on this league, forcing myself to watch. I'm trying, y'all. And like I said earlier, all these damn coaches like, oh, you are missing out. I'm like, no, you're not missing out. Yes, the rules are intriguing, and there are some innovations that probably will make its way into the NFL and maybe college as well. But it's not that compelling. You don't have fans in the stands really, other than the weird football cultists. And you think giving tickets away to fill the house in some of these places, and you're just looking there and you're just like, oh, this is so sad. And yeah, you look at some of the guys who have had names in the college or been at the college level, I should say, or have had a cup of coffee in the NFL, and you know why they're at this level when you watch these games. And that's not to say that I haven't seen some great plays here and there. I have. This is the highlight reels. But is this something that I can say is worthwhile? No, I think it's a sight for sore eyes. It really is. As I said earlier, if you're a football coach, yeah, this type of year, or a football cultist, you need the itch that itch, but nobody else cares. Facts. Okay, well, I maybe leave you. I shouldn't go here, but I'm going to. Let me leave you with this salty take. Now, I know we're always carrying on about how cooked we are as a society. We are. I always see this stuff on YouTube. Like, because I'm an insomniac, so I watch all kinds of like weird stuff, mountaineering stuff with people doing stupid crap on the 7,000 and 8,000 peaks. I also watch a lot of like Darwin Awards stuff. I probably have brought this up before, but who the hell thought of subway surfing as far as content before everything, or that's how you get your thrills? A couple of kids have already passed away, and it have been a lot since this became a fad. I guess sometime, whenever, but you see it from time to time, and every time there'll be some op-ed in the Post or the Times about really corralling it. There's a big controversy going on with the motorcycles that these kids are doing, and they're going to screw it up for the rest of us as far as probably clamping down on the e-bikes and stuff. Like, thanks a lot, kids. But this subway surfing nonsense? Are you effing kidding me? Like, that's why they give out the Darwin Awards. Sadly. Because, you don't want that to be somebody's kid, brother, and usually guys who get caught up in this. But there have been some girls, too. But it's like, yeah. Really? Look it up, folks. I mean, if I could find the video, I'd probably post it. Maybe I will find some content that won't get me a copyright strike. Still figuring this out. All right. I think that is enough from the Foxhole. We've been chatting you up. We thank you, as always, for joining us. I'm going to go sit and watch the finals for a little bit. Like and subscribe and hype the video. Hype the video, like and subscribe to FTINFX Media's YouTube channel. Tell your friends too. We need the help. Keep an eye out for the scene. I'm telling you, we are going to drop a lot of episodes here this summer. We're really out hitting the streets to get all the wonderful people in our orbit to come on and chat it up. Great content. Going to have a few surprises here and there. Stay tuned. In the meantime, enjoy some adult beverages. Enjoy some wonderful food with family, friends, the people that matter. Hang out with your besties and all that good stuff. Stay sane. Always stay safe. And most importantly, avoid them damn bracelets. Don't need no gray bar Hilton time for anybody. Fostering in the Foxhole will be dropping a new episode on Friday, probably in the afternoon, so keep an eye out for that. Gonna try to have the season 3 debut roll out with this, so check my social media for content. Always hit me up if you want to be a part of the experience, or just give me some feedback, whatever the case may be. All right. Peace, folks. Keep it tight. We'll talk to you soon enough.